As I said, I'm a PhD student. I have submitted my thesis in December, and I represent new insight into the mystery of Landvik herring. And when we're talking about Landvik herring, this is a local population in Landvikvannet. I will show a map later. And I've studied the population dynamics of these herring and in this area. And, okay, it's not automatic. So the first thing is why I've studied Landvik herring. And this is quite easy question to answer for myself, because herring has a complex population structure and have complex population dynamics. We find different populations along different environments, and we find them in fully marine environments as well as in nearly freshwater environments. In addition to that, we know that there is mixing between populations, but the connectivity along them is quite unsure. When we're talking about Landvikvannet and the adjacent fjords, we have three different populations, which is one Landvikvannet or Landvik herring itself. We have Norwegian springspawners and coastal Skagerrak springspawners. Norwegian spring-spawning herring were identified based on otolith structures, where the other two are only identified based on the sampling location. So those ones which are sampled in Landvikvannet were defined as Landvik herring, and those ones outside are coastal herrings. And we have looked at phenotypic differences, for example, numbers of vertebrate, length at age, and otolith shape. And we found clear differences among those three populations. And Landvik herring is the one having the smallest size at age and the lowest numbers of vertebrates among those three populations. In another study, we've tagged individual herring and looked at their different migration behaviors. And this is the next slide. No, this is seasonal dynamics. We have sampled the one within the spawning season, and we have seen that the numbers of vertebrate decreased with increasing spawning season. So this is an indication that there's a mixture between coastal herring and Landvik herring, which are based on the the sampling location. But for the Norwegian springspawners herring, the numbers of vertebrates stayed constant. This is now the study where we've tagged herring and looked at the migration behavior. And what we found is that there were three clusters when they left the study area. And those clusters we identified as these three populations again. And the earliest leaving the area were Norwegian spring-spawning herring right after spawning in February, March. And Landvik herring stayed longest in the study area until May before they left the area. We also looked at the different growth rates of larvae based on otolith growth structures. And again, we found clear differences between those three populations. And Landvik herring, which spawns later in the season, according to higher temperatures, had the highest larval growth. And we also linked the otolith growth to the different numbers of vertebrates for coastal herring and Landvik herring. And what we've seen is that the otolith growth for coastal herring stayed constant, where it is decreasing with increasing numbers of vertebrate for Landvik herring. And this is also an indication that there's some mixing going on between those two populations. And it's only, again, based on the sampling location we have defined them. So we are not quite sure how to discriminate those two populations. What is still missing is that we have no direct evidence of spawning in this area. I have been snorkeling quite a lot, but I haven't found any fertilized eggs. We don't know anything about the behavior or migrations pattern of those three populations when they left the area. And we have still no indication about the origin of Landvik herring. But we have found now in 2 continuous years larvae or newly hatched larvae within Landvikvannet. So we're getting closer to the indication that there is spawning in Landvik. And the conclusion is that we have 3 populations which are phenotypically different. And those 3 populations can be comprised as meta-populations. And we are quite sure that there's mixing between Landvik and Norwegian herring and the coastal herring. But we are not sure if there's really mixing between Landvik herring and the coastal herring. So this is what I have to find out, and with that I would like to thank you for your attention.